Tonight, we're going to start out with review and approval of minutes for April 7th. And does anybody have any comment? There's a copy attached. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
With me abstaining. Okay, normally at this time we have public comment on issues other than anything that we have a public hearing on. Anybody want to make a public comment? Come on up.
A couple things, just in case some people have not heard, there was a very good judicial decision made to benefit the town of New Paltz and towns all over the New York State with the 3rd Department of Appellate Division upholding the New Paltz wetlands law. So I expect that within the next several days, if not already, the decision will be entered into the records and it will become enforceable again. So clearly that's something that the planning board should be paying a lot of attention to. The second thing is, speaking of litigation, going over the Walmart experience in 1996 and 95, before it came to conclusion, we discovered that the Orange County IDA had given preliminary approval to the Huguenot Plaza, not the Huguenot Plaza, yeah, it was the Huguenot Plaza at that time. There have been so many different stories on that site, but that was the Huguenot Plaza. And the Orange County IDA had given preliminary approval, and the Village of New Paltz and several of the community organizations challenged that approval on the basis that the seeker process had not been finished by the lead agency, which of course was the planning board. It seems to me that, that challenge was based on a prior precedent in Cornell, New York, up near Rochester, where the court did uphold the rescinding of that IDA decision because seeker had not been completed by the lead agency. In the case of our challenge, it was not respected because they said the timing was too late. We had only discovered it a few months after the fact. But in this case, dealing with Park Point, it seems to me that might be a very relevant issue to look at, which would imply, in fact, that the Ulster County IDA has not properly approved its Park Point decision because, in fact, the seeker process has not been completed. And you are the lead agency. So I just thought you could maybe make use of that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
You can disagree or something.
Wait for Lynn. Keep going until we get Lynn here.
Well, why don't you
We
take
can-
one of the applications that
You can do the
Okay.
You want to do the one for most public interest?
I guess I would just pick the first one. Site.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Okay, we have some comments from Dave Clauser.
Dave, would you mind just summarizing your memo?
Sure.
Okay. maybe
There's
I'm
some
just reading.
plan details basically that need to be corrected. Some of it is just there's a difference between the size of the building that's being represented and the building elevations that are shown. It's some minor stuff. There is a sign that needs to be presented with more detail. Stacy will be involved in that. I agree that the engineers calculated that there'd be less use with this particular use. But I would suggest that the septic system be looked at. It's such a small lot that the last thing the owner needs is to find there's an issue there. So that's one of my recommendations. And the rest is really very minor comments, but something that needs to be corrected prior to seeker. There's a few issues on the differences with the EAF.
Did you guys get this?
No, we don't have a copy.
I don't know if we.
Do we have another one, Dave?
I might be.
Again, mostly minor, very minor things, stuff that just needs to be corrected on the plan in the seeker form so we can move ahead. Nothing serious.
So we can work with building inspector in that regard?
Well, Stacy's going to brief us on what we
Well-
have to
Okay.
do in terms of
Okay.
Right,
zoning and use.
yeah, we're here, the applicant I sent you, you should have all received a memo, okay? The applicant is gonna be required to get several variances for this project. The biggest variance that he's gonna need is gonna need a use variance. And when he first came to me with the project, I said, well, first thing you need to do is obtain a use variance from the zoning board. Because you can't do the project, no sense in going to the planning board for site plan if you're not gonna be able to put the use in the district. So made an application to the zoning board, went to the zoning board. The zoning board took a look at his site plan, and the zoning board was concerned that the site couldn't. Sorry, my brain just went blank.
Accommodate the use.
Yeah, that the site couldn't handle the use. So they recommended that he come to the planning board, see what the planning board thought about his site plan. The idea is for the planning board to take a look at his site plan, to get their comment and feedbacks on his site plan, and possibly, you know, send something to the zoning board on whether or not you think that, you know, the site can sustain the use. Because for him to proceed forward at the planning board, you know, for several meetings and thousands of dollars in costs without being granted a use variance doesn't make any sense. It's a waste of everybody's time and money. So that's kind of where we're at. When he was here last time he was here, I know you guys took a look at it, you kicked it back to me and said you're gonna need some more variances. They cleaned up their plan, took some of your notes into consideration. I took a look at the plan, came up with several additional variances that they're gonna need, which they can see, you know, when they go back to the zoning board. But that's kind of where he's kind of at right now, and he's kind of stuck in a catch-22 a little bit here. So, you know,
Would it be helpful to review the specific area variances so you can explain what's
sure.
proposed and what's needed?
The property is currently located in an R1 district. Okay, do we all know where it is? We all know the site? Okay. He's gonna need an area variances for his parking. He's showing parking, in the rear, okay, yard.
To the north?
To the east, okay,
To
that
the
would,
east,
well,
okay.
because 32 is, he's considering 32 his front yard. Okay, so if you look on his site plan, to the east would be his rear yard, okay? That's where he has 7 or 8 parking spaces.
That would be
Does somebody
north.
have a
That would
plan?
be north.
Yeah. The open one.
It would be east, it's this way,
Difficult to
right, east,
Yeah.
yes. So he's gonna need an area variance for parking in his rear yard. Because the rear yard setback out there is 50 feet.
54, I think.
So, and actually, the front yard setback is 50 feet, so the lot's only,
0.3 acres, 0.34 acres.
it's a, s- so, you know, the lot's only 83 feet wide, and he needs 100 feet of setbacks. So, you know, he's going to need that parking, he's going to need that variance for his parking. Okay, he's also showing parking along Hummel Road, okay, which currently is existing. But if he's going to pursue that parking, he should get a variance for that as well. His required open space, he's required to have 65%. His engineer has, calculated out at 54, so he's gonna need, a variance for open space. And based on his narrative and his sketches of his elevations, it appears that he's going to need area variances for his signs. Okay, because he's looking for, well, there are no provisions for these type of businesses in an R1 district to begin with. So,
I think what we were wrestling with the last time is we were looking at the history of this building. Now, you're mentioning how there are parking spots along Hummel Road that were most recently used, but there was definitely parking used to the northeast of the building in a prior iteration of this building, right?
yeah, at one time this was a gas station.
Yeah, we heard the history. It's
Yeah.
Okay.
colorful, sure.
Right, and then it had a use variance for a restaurant, and then it had a use variance for a beauty shop. So there's been, a multitude of different type of uses in there. The most recent use, however, never did receive a use variance. So the actual use
Yeah, it
that's
wasn't
currently
provided.
there is a beauty salon.
Does he need a use variance for his business now?
Yes, because he's going to retail.
Okay.
Well,
I mean, I'm pretty comfortable with the variance regarding the parking, because I feel like there was a version of this parking lot in the past. The variance regarding the sign, I understand that this area is not currently zoned for any type of sign, so that's why it would require a variance. But I feel like as long as the sign that is being pursued is, would fit within
yeah.
a comp, if you were to apply a different type of zone, and it's not like the sign is going to be outside of, if this property were to be zoned differently.
Well, I think the applicant at some point has to present a design for the zoning board to take a look at.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the sign fits in with.
So currently,
sign
we
that
don't have
generally.
Just a sketch of
any
the-
proposed dimensions of the sign?
No, there is.
Yeah,
Okay.
The drawing is a sketch for sign, page 2.
Oh, okay, so he's got a sign for, he's got a sign that's 4 feet wide by 4 feet high from the ground to the top of the sign. The actual sign itself looks like it's 36 inches.
Almost similar to my market sign. It's a little bit smaller.
I mean, that's just off the top of my head, that
You need
seems
to talk to them.
generally bigger than the, area around, but I don't have the figures off the top of my head.
It's the same size almost as my market sign is, like a square.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
about the same.
Okay.
There's already was 2 posts there. There used to be a sign there. That's what we just assume. Put it in there. If they have objection, we can still work with the building inspector. Whatever
Yeah.
they allowed, then we can work with it. I'm not steadfast. This is exactly the sign I want. As long as there's a sign that you guys comfortable with, or the zoning board is CPA comfortable with, I have no objection.
What about the signs for the business across the street or for Clarkson's?
It's just almost similar to that. That's what we copy that, to copy myself.
Right.
It's similar to the same,
Similar
it's
to
nothing.
those two,
yeah,
plus similar
yeah.
to my market.
Well, you have to be careful because there
Okay.
is a regulation for signs for existing. First of all, they're located in the B2 district,
Which one?
Well, but-
across the street.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a
But if we're
different
just trying to
zoning
make it
district,
similar since there's nothing.
which is going to allow a certain size sign,
Yeah.
understanding he's located in a residential district, even though it is still across the street.
These signs would all face away from the residential district, or face to the street, correct?
Yeah, it's not same with like on Route 32. Just like my market sign is almost the same thing on Route 32. We can even attach it to the building, but I thought it just would be, looks more presentable as far as the unity with across the street and also with my market side.
Right.
Is
But
a sim-
It's not gonna be facing the residents.
Oh, no, no. It's-
Is this the sign?
That's just for the,
Well, I
sort
just-
of, the,
we've had-
that's not a sign, no.
Well, no, under our
That-
code, it might-
That
Yeah,
would,
that might
that,
constitute a sign.
based on the type of business that you're proposing, that would be considered a sign.
What is that, a mural, like the size of the building? Is that
Yeah,
what
it's
you're
a,
proposing?
like a,
Good
as
decoration.
a, like a tower on the side of it, just give it a little bit of definition. Just, the whole idea was change the whole image of that building. It looks really awful. I mean, and not to spend tons of money try to fix it. You don't want to tear it down, but it just
See, we just
cosmetically.
went through that on another project, and that would be considered,
Yeah.
the whole thing, mural would be considered a sign, so. it
Yeah, I
would
know,
be
but
way in
you,
excess
that's
of
just,
what
we
you're
put
allowed.
that there just for a cosmetic
Yeah.
thing.
Well,
But,
what we're trying to do is make sure you know what the board is
Yeah.
comfortable with and what might be
yeah,
an issue.
well, this was just the idea the architect threw in there, and I said, if they see it, they like it, or they don't like it, or is allowed, we can work with that. You know, it's not, again, put my foot in the stone, this is what I want. Just whatever you guys comfortable with. We need a signage. This was just, we can make that just wall there, and we can paint it, just a color, not picture. You know, something decorative,
And cosmetic type.
yeah.
Because of that location, I think the sign would also be, it's sort of critical because you could obstruct the line of sight on 32 because it's low to the ground, you know, sitting in a car and stuff, or that you could not be able to see somebody coming out Hummel Road when you're coming out the driveway. You know, so it has to be thought about.
Yeah.
a little bit.
No, this sign, the where this one was drawn, this is almost, this sign is almost, there's here around the curve, almost in this
Oh, down there, okay.
down there, there's two posts here. Either this side of it or this side, whatever you guys comfortable with. We can put it in located there. Did you notice there was two posts on the property, used to be a sign? I think it's just between these two. There's we weren't going to put it near Hummel Road at all. If it would be toward the end of the building, or where the entrance is, that proposed entrance to go to the parking lot, either before or after that.
Already you have here some sign before.
Yeah.
Used to be.
Send it to ZBA.
I think we should say the CBA, the
Do you
recommendation
have
for
any
variance.
sense of comments?
Well, I feel like the only thing I guess that personally concerns me is the open space variance, but it just seems kind of like slipshod that we're just saying like, oh, I don't have a problem with that variance or this variance. Like, I guess I worry about like a spot zoning thing, and like, I don't know, George, is there any sort of like guiding principle for situations like that?
There is a set of criteria that the zoning board must apply. It looks at things such as compatibility with the neighborhood,
Okay,
environmental impact, and so on.
which is what
But
we're doing.
they're also required to seek comment from you about the site plan the planning aspects.
Okay.
So if you're comfortable with the way the site's laid out, and I think if you're not anticipating there would be any significant change in what they would require, then you could provide that information to the zoning board, and if the zoning board would like some more information, maybe you guys can speak up. But I think that's generally, they wanna get a sense that
That we're
if
okay,
they go
yeah.
through the variance process, that it's gonna be something the planning board is reasonably comfortable with.
Well, I wonder if we could talk about, and I have no ideas, how to fix the open space issue by adding some,
One thing is taking out some pavement.
yeah,
So
adding some
that's
green.
I think somewhat a plus, and there's some landscaping.
Yeah. There are two proposed spaces on the Hummel Road side, which are very close to the corner.
Right.
And they would not be permitted under current zoning if you are putting them in there for pre-existing non-conforming, parking spaces. I guess the question is if
So you could take those out.
feel you could accommodate the need for additional open space by removing those spaces, it would be helpful in.
I like that.
So we just
Yeah.
take this, add these, the 2 parking space that we're proposing, take that and add it to the open space. I mean, that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do,
Do the
because
7 remaining parking places meet your requirements?
yes, pretty much, because again, this is not a high traffic, like, it's not like my market, that we get 200-300 people a day, each car coming in and out. If we get like 10 customer a day, that's what we're projecting, 10, maybe 20 customer a day, that's a maximum.
Oh, aim
Join-
high.
I mean, so we'll add you to it, so. So,
Taking that driveway entrance off of Hummel, you'll do that too by, after you remove those 2 spaces, there wouldn't be a need for that entrance. You're not going to use that piece of pavement or that driveway part. You're just going to use the parking in the, I would say rear, but I guess I should say side of the building.
you're talking about where the parking lot is?
Right,
I mean,
use that, but there would be no need for the entrance here on Hummel Road if you take the 2 parking spaces out.
That's the,
Do we need,
It's so
do we
close
need
to
1
the-
entrance or 2 entrance for the building?
No, you only
What?
need one.
No, for fire exit? No?
For the building itself, is
Nope,
Yeah.
just one.
It's so close to the corner, it's not a very safe condition there right now.
That would increase it by about 10%. That would be close to the, space.
You're getting there.
So if that satisfies you guys, I have no objection, you know, that'll be,
Where's your entrance? Is it facing the parking yard?
already the entrance is one, we were planning, where we have the 2 parking space. We were gonna have a 1 employees entrance, not the customers, just the people that work there. 2 parking space for them to go from the back side to the store. And the front would be for the customers. But you guys want a more space for the, also we can take this out and maybe close that entrance, so we only have 1 entrance from the main one. Yeah, yeah, so it would be only 1 entrance.
And that entrance would be facing the parking lot?
Yes, yeah. There's a map, I think, there's,
building.
Here, this will be supposed to be laid and then from parking.
When a customer comes into the building.
it would be, yeah, yeah.
This is 32 up this way. We're looking from 32 to this way.
So someone basically leaves the parking lot and walks
Yeah,
south
yeah.
along
Yes.
the building's
Yeah.
edge, and then
Yes.
into the building to the east.
Would you
I
think we
don't
should send it to the zoning board?
Right, do you wanna, comment a little bit more on that sign? Because I would be comfortable with a variance provided that it's, I think the point that you raised is a good one, and that we don't want the variance to feel like spot zoning, or, you know, if we can, identify like a plain vanilla solution to the variance that maybe echoes what's going on across the street, you know, as opposed to something that feels a whole lot different, like that large mural.
Well, it sounds like the sign proposed is based on the neighborhood signs.
As
you
long
know?
as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
I would only be concerned about the size of that mural then.
Yeah.
Is there a sign
Some of them
ordinance
are,
for
yeah.
home, like a home business?
I don't know if.
How about that, the mirror, what we can make it like a design, some kind of woodwork, like a V shape or something, you know, would be no
Yeah.
sign, but something
Something
decorative
but not.
as like a wood,
A sign.
because we're gonna make the outside the wood sort of design. And this would be like either pine or something very decorative with a like angle, you know, one this way, around the line like that. Just to give it a little bit look different on the building. So
Yeah, I
a
think as
little
long
bit
as it's not
contemporary.
like advertising, you know.
No, not advertising, but this would be some, I would
More
say,
like an architectural
cultural
design as
design, yeah,
opposed to
yeah.
a
Instead of a sign.
sign.
Would be some, again, the way I was trying to, if this is this, then you have a wood going this way and wood going this way,
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be nice.
sort of this way, you know, if, with a, just like a artwork but with woodwork, you know, on the, instead of the mirror thing.
What you could consider is saying to the zoning board, we recommend that you favorably consider the use variance, and that your variance provide for signage on this property, which is an R1, consistent with the B2 signage requirement, which is whatever the zoning table allows. If what the applicant is proposing goes beyond that, I think you would have to make a proposal to the zoning board for a larger variance. If there is, and then the question becomes, is it chicken and egg, or the zoning board then wants you guys to say what you think about this being larger than B2.
Right. I would be uncomfortable with anything that felt like it required a variance that didn't fit with the B2 sign requirements. So I think the first half of what you described is exactly
Which it
as I
sounds
would
like.
put it, and then I would put a period.
Which it sounds like they're, you know, you're open to having it fit in with the kind of community character of the neighboring zoning. It sounds like. So, yeah.
And George, what would be our next step to make a
One more
motion to
thing.
send it to zoning or?
The memo should also discuss the open space, and that, you know, what you'd like to see him do on the plan to reduce the size of the variance for the open space.
So if you went over each of those areas Stacy has identified, said this is what we recommend the zoning board consider, and say you're generally in favor of the application for the use variance for this use, you favor reduction in open space by eliminating the 2 spaces on Home Road, and you favor a variance for the sign that is consistent with
B2,
the B2
B2.
sign requirements.
Yeah.
and
We can, yeah.
Your top maximum. What else is there? Just one other thing.
And they would look at it and send it back to us, right?
It would take action on the variance request.
Okay.
Once they've taken that, you can then consider the site plan and take action. I assume this is probably something which is not a coordinated review. For seeker, there's not, as I see it, a lot of significant environmental stuff to do.
We'll have to go to the county for 239, but
And they'll send it for the variance.
And DOT will need a curb cut.
DOT needs a curb cut.
So we have the use variance, the area variance for parking, area variance for required open space, and area variance for signs. Okay? So
And
what I would,
use variance also.
the use variance, what I would suggest is you authorize the chairman to sign a letter that, a memo to the zoning board incorporating the stuff that's tonight.
Okay.
Sounds good.
You move it?
You made the motion?
Oh, no, I read it. Well, everybody good with that? Okay, and then it'll come back to us after the gets his variance.
Do we have to come back to you again?
After you get your variance.
Okay, after we get the variance, then we come back to you, then what do
And
we
then
do?
we'll look at the site plan.
Then we look at the site plan again?
You give this to your engineer, there's just, again, a lot of little details here that need to be taken care of, but they're nothing really significant.
Okay. So he has to address what you're requiring in there and bring it back to you again? When's the next meeting?
Not until after you meet with the ZBA and go
Okay.
through the process with them.
Okay.
Okay.
That would be next month. I'm just wondering if it's something you can authorize or refer. You probably not, if we change the conservation. I was musing over whether it might be possible to make the referral to the county for planning board review, but there are changes that have to be made to the plan.
Yeah.
And we'll find out, point out the
So it's a little bit of a, but I'll try and write up a memo and she can get it out to the zoning board this week.
Mhm.
And then they'll put you on the calendar whenever,
On the zoning
Okay.
board, yeah.
Right.
And then after zoning board, that we gotta come to you
Yeah.
and
more stuff.
sound like it never ends.
It will, it will.
Oh, well, okay. I mean, there is a light at the end of the tunnel?
Yes.
But when you're driving Buffalo, especially into the high zone,
And if you have any questions, call the office and schedule an appointment to see me.
Okay, thank you.
But don't just stop in because my calendar is like full.
Yeah, I know, I'm just watching.
Yeah,
No.
call schedule.
I mean, just, I have those recommendations,
You have right here.
so give it to the engineering and bring it back to you.
After you go to the ZBA,
Yeah.
should I go to the ZBA and take care of that?
Okay.
Get involved in the details.
okay, the next, thank you.
Yeah,
And,
thanks so much.
I'll try and get something tomorrow or the next day.
Okay, great, then that, I think it's
You can
13.
call and check with her when it's
Yeah.
sent.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is jump ahead to the Park Point, and Lynn Bowdry's gonna sit in for me, and then we'll get back on the regular agenda.
Sit in the middle. Take over Lyle's chair.
You're in charge.
Okay, I don't think I even need this, but get out my pen. I have a pen.
Any powers there?
No, I think my battery is good. I'm just tangled up. Okay, hi, I'm the temporary chair here for Lyle for Park Point. And the question is, what are we doing tonight? And I believe we have some materials
Yes.
from our lawyer, George Lithgow, to go over.
Let me just summarize where you've been and where you're going.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Before we jump into the materials? I wanted to see what you thought about the gentleman's public comment regarding the historical situation, when we, when he brought up what occurred with Walmart in the past. Like, would that be in our purview to, as lead agency, to investigate how that was handled previously relative to our finding statement and then how the Ulster County IDA responded to our finding statement 2 days later?
I think it is something you would like to know, and I'm not sure investigated is the proper term. Each agency wants a FEIS in the normal role of seeker.
Give that.
You do an FEIS, summarizes comments, there is then a finding statement that can be adopted, has to be adopted by each involved agency. Generally what happens, the lead agency will issue its findings, and other involved agencies will generally adopt those either verbatim or with minor modifications related to a particular issue of interest to their jurisdiction. In this case, you adopted a draft finding statement, and you directed me to finalize it with, some ministerial acts, things to be filled in and such, and I've been working with Dave's office to get that done. One of the things that we also identified as useful for the finding statement is a statement of, or supplement, which indicates the resources that were relied upon in making the findings. So in this case, this was atypical. There was a finding statement that was accepted. There was a public hearing on the finding statement by the planning board. There was then a public hearing on the application for the pilot, which was held by the Ulster County IDA. There was a mitigation proposal that was made to the town. It was discussed at the February 27th meeting. That attempted to articulate, or to propose mitigation for the impact of the pilot request, the application that had been made by the applicant, which is different than the pilot that was actually approved. And we, the town board and the assessor worked at clarifying some of the points there. That took some time as well. So there are various documents, and then the school board has issued both in the context of the planning board public hearing, the IDA public hearing, a resolution which sets forth its concerns and issues with respect to this. So these are all documents which are going to be incorporated by reference into the findings. Normally, that would have happened with the FEIS. There would be appendices. We have somewhat atypical procedure, and we agreed with the applicant that what we would be doing is addressing those issues and comments in the finding statement, which we've done. So you have approved that document generally as to form, generally as to substance at the meeting on the 7th. The IDA went forward and took an action. I've advised they comply with seeker before they took the action. I have no idea how they actually made the determination they did, but I'm told they did make a seeker determination, and they did make findings before they took the action on the pilot. So based on that information, that would appear to be at least procedural compliance. Whether it addressed all the issues of concern, whether it can be challenged, is a different story. Which is why I say it may be helpful to you to understand how that was done, in case you wish to take any of that information into consideration. You can amend your findings. You have that power before there's final action taken on the land use applications before you. So if there's something in the IDA documents that cause you to think again about conclusions you made or conclusions you didn't make with respect to the application, you do have that opportunity. So what I've done is I've made the changes, the ministerial changes to the finding statement that you reviewed on April 7th. And now fills in the blanks, corrects those annoying little typos. There's no substantive change to that document. There were things I was requested to add in or clarify. For example, you wanted reference to the Camoin report, and there was a reference in there.
There's a, well, we can jump into this later. I mean, this is more of a, I guess, like a housekeeping issue, but you made some changes to the number of bedrooms and the number of units.
Yes.
Because the draft we had previously talked about 32-bedroom faculty units. and it seems like you've changed that to 30 units with 36 beds. But when we discussed with the applicant and with Camoin during a review of their financial impact statement, because when we were looking at the assumptions that they put forth in terms of how much faculty would spend in our community, and when it didn't add up with how much faculty actually earn, Camoin responded by saying that there would be 2 incomes in these apartments. So I think at a minimum, you have to look at those 30 units as whether it's a 1-bedroom apartment or a 2-bedroom, there's 2 individuals living there, so they should be considered 30 total bedrooms.
If Camoin's
Based on
number is
Camoin.
correct. Right.
Well, based on Camoin and the applicant's assertion that the way that the faculty would afford to live in this housing complex is by having 2 incomes.
Now, one of the things that I talked to the chairman about last week in going through the documents and reviewing the finding statement, there are a couple of points where the FEIS has made one conclusion. You've heard testimony since the FEIS. And in the normal course of events, if there is something in the DIS which is not accurate or which you are changing the substance, you would normally make reference to that in the FEIS. Here you don't have that because we're following this atypical procedure. So the information that you got about occupancy, the revised fiscal impact information, and so on, was information was developed after the FEIS was, in the FEIS, it was not subject to comment or scrutiny. So if there are points like that that you wish to clarify and make clear what the FEIS said has been changed by subsequent testimony, what I believe would be appropriate is to consider amending it to add another supplement that says, the FEIS said this, we got this information, and we now would say this with respect to that point. The point about fiscal impact analysis, if there are specific statements in the FEIS that are inconsistent with the findings because they've changed since then, you might want to clarify that chain of reasoning so that people will understand there was testimony about the number of apartments that are currently occupied, the spatial distribution of those, that may have caused you to call into question the applicant's contention that 90% of the units will be from outside the area.
Right. So I guess stepping back, I'm just confused in terms of this process, and it seems like it's confusing for everyone involved because so much of it is unprecedented. But like I don't exactly understand where do we go from here, considering our draft finding statements and seeker and our determinations about the consequences of pilots, and then 2 days later for the county IDA to respond as if.
Well, when we were here on April 7th, my suggestion was I'd be authorized to draft a resolution which would be consistent with the finding statement. That no longer seems to be reasonable or appropriate because your findings reach a conclusion with respect to the pilot. Pilot, we understand, has been granted, and therefore it leaves you with only one conclusion. So I have prepared a resolution which is consistent with that conclusion. And
So how do we continue with like a review of site plan?
Yeah,
Like,
does
what-
that
what is
make
the
sense?
point of that type of work if?
Under the current, does it appear that it would be necessary under the current situation, circumstances? Because there is a pilot. We found that would have significant adverse impact and can't be mitigated, and therefore, the land use application with that can't be approved. The initial thought was to go through the site plan process, presuming that there would not be a pilot, and then also providing the alternative that if a pilot was granted, this would be the consequence. So right now you have, simplifies your conclusion. So what I've done is prepared a draft resolution consistent with the finding statement. What I would suggest is that the board either contemplate a special meeting next week to, it's really not appropriate to adopt it tonight.
The resolution?
Yes, I think you want to look at.
Yeah, we definitely need the resolution and this updated finding statement.
Right, so you need to go, you need to do three things. You need to go through the finding statement and confirm that that is the document as you wished it to be revised as of April 7th. So it conforms with your direction at that time. You then need to consider whether there are changes or supplements that are necessary in order to clarify any apparent inconsistencies between the FEIS and the conclusions you reached. And you would benefit by explaining them, reasoning that brings you from, for example, the conclusion in the FEIS that the impact on the school district would be negligible to the conclusion you reached in the finding statement. So there is, I believe that's one issue that you need to look at. You look at the police impacts to make sure those are consistent. And you need to look at the cumulative impact of both of the physical impacts on community services and how that would affect community character and population distribution. You heard testimony during the public hearing that New Paltz has got the highest, for example, you heard testimony, New Paltz has the highest rate of tax-exempt properties in the county, 31%. And that is a factor which bears upon the ability of the residents to pay for taxes. And it's a factor that I believe you have articulated was a concern with the overall fiscal impact. So the third thing is to consider if you review the finding statement and you review the FEIS and there's no change to the conclusion, the finding statement should be amended to address the outcome of the IDA. Was granted, as a consequence it follows.
George, what constitutes the conclusion of secret, the secret process?
Is the adoption and filing of your findings.
Okay,
So you're almost there,
okay, so we haven't concluded the secret process.
not yet.
And the IDA went ahead and did its, granted it.
Well, let me back up. Once the FEIS is adopted,
Mhm.
generally, that is the point at which any agency is free to adopt findings. In this case,
Yeah.
the IDA relied upon your statement of findings because it was advised that you are following an atypical process.
Mhm.
So they did have your finding statement, you did adopt it, it did set forth responses to issues that were addressed during the secret review process. So arguably they would, or presumably they would contend on this.
So in a way, our review of the finding statement, the draft finding statement that you just handed us
Mhm.
is a slightly different review. Now we actually have to look at it through the lens of addressing the IDA's decision.
What you're basically asking is should it be amended?
Mhm.
To fill in all the blanks, that's ministerial, and I've done that part. To take into account new facts or circumstances, bear upon the conclusion you reach in your document. Because to file this in the form you adopted on April 7th is going to lead to some puzzlement on the part of involved agencies and the public.
Mhm.
Right,
If you
okay, so we
say-
just need to reflect the IDA's
Yes.
vote from April 9th.
Yes.
Got it.
So,
Chairperson, I'd like to make a point of order too. Sorry, George, I thought you were done speaking, if I may.
I didn't think we were taking any additional
If you
discussion
follow up
from
to
the,
a point of order is something that must be heard.
oh,
we
well,
don't, but I think it's reasonable
The
to.
reason I'm making a point of order, Madam Chairperson, is because before you sat, there was a public comment made that was pertinent to Park Point and the IDA, and you didn't get to hear it. So
That's
I'd like
true.
to have it reread or restated by David Porter, who made the statement.
okay. please,
I simply pointed out that in the Walmart case back in 1995 dealing with Huguenot Plaza, the village of New Paltz, joined by 2 community groups and several individuals, challenged in court the Orange County IDA's approval, preliminary approval of the Huguenot Plaza application, which they were supporting financially through a pilot. And we challenged that on grounds that the secret process by the lead agency, the planning board, had not been concluded. And we based our challenge on a precedent that existed in Hornell, New York, several years earlier, where the same issue was raised and the IDA's approval was thrown out of court because they had not waited for the seeker approval to be done. They jumped the gun. And I was suggesting that perhaps that case, those circumstances are quite relevant for the existing situation, unless there are other legal precedents that have come in the meantime.
Do you have a copy of the document?
Of the Hornell case?
Yes.
I looked online, and I just tossed out a big set of archives of that whole process, but it's possible that it could be found. It's in, it definitely is referred to in our book about the Walmart case, and the precedent was brought up to the judge here in the local Supreme Court, and he took it very seriously, the arguments that were made, except he said it was beyond the time limit. So if it's still relevant, it's a worthwhile case to look at. I will try to find that.
Okay, I appreciate it.
So it almost seems like what we need to do in this review of the draft finding statement now, as we consider amending it, we may, and this I think kind of goes back to my original question, which was inspired by Mr. Porter's initial comment, it seems like we should potentially reference the Hornell New York Challenge as well as the New Paltz situation regarding Walmart, both of those situations as they relate to what has transpired between our planning board on April 7th and the county IDA on April 9th.
We should probably look into that and discuss it further. I think it's worth looking at and see what happened and how it would apply. Or not. But I think looking at it certainly is good. So, the final thing was, we have a couple of large applications, or at least one large application, other than Park Point to work through, and the question, I discussed with the chairman the possibility of holding a special meeting next week to go through finding statement, resolution, and make your determinations if you're prepared to do that at that meeting. That gives you more flexibility. And the question is whether the board would be available on either it's next Monday or next Thursday. Kelly? Are those the open dates? We don't know.
I don't have any location for it at this point.
I mean, will
alternative
that
is-
give us enough time to get information regarding the Hornell case as well as the New Paltz Walmart case?
I mean, the other thing we have to do is go through and fix up all these inconsistencies. I don't know, could we do 2 weeks?
2 weeks, that would be the regular meeting. So if that's the board's pleasure, we can do that. So we consider the finding statement, any changes that need to be made, whether it needs to be amended, and then you could at that point consider the resolution.
Sounds good to me.
well,
Yeah.
what is our sense of of trying to meet on Monday, the 5th, or on our regular, excuse me, on our regular meeting date, and possibly having a very heavy schedule on that date?
I'd rather meet at the regular date or later, not on Monday of the first Monday in May, but later day.
Yeah, I
Like
would-
Thursday or something.
Yeah, I generally don't like using days except for Mondays for planning board stuff.
Uh-huh.
Because I have other evenings.
So what would be helpful is if you have specific, if individuals have specific questions, let me know, so I can make any revisions if that's possible, or at least address them, so we can work through this as quickly as possible.
Great.
So, Tom, what is your sense?
Whatever.
Whatever. Tim, you'd rather,
I'm more comfortable waiting until the 12th, May the 12th.
uh-huh,
But I definitely would like to see some references to the Cornell case and the New Paltz Walmart case.
Or find out what it says. I just read it and it's totally off point. That's
It's totally what?
Totally off point.
We can,
The Cornell case.
we'll take a look.
Yeah, take a look, the lawyer should take a look at it. If that's relevant to cite, decide it. If it's not, you don't.
mhm.
Yeah, I'd rather meet at the next meeting if we could.
What's that?
Even the applicant agrees. If it's relevant, it's relevant. If it's not, it's not.
Absolutely.
So,
Okay, I
believe
get a
you have-
sense from the board that we're happier
On the
just doing it on our regular meeting date instead of having an extra meeting, particularly since going through this material very carefully takes a long time.
Well, you have been through it once, and
Yeah.
it is track changes, so you can see the changes that have been made.
Mm-hmm.
It
Okay.
should be much easier.
Yeah,
It should be
there's not,
much,
there's not too much.
well, it should
It
be
should be
some,
fun.
let's not exaggerate.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay, so.
Great.
All right, so that's what we'll do. Do we need to vote to do this, or we'll just do it?
Why not vote to
Okay.
consider that scenario of activities on the 12th?
You're making a motion to do what?
To consider action on the revised finding statement, consider whether to amend the finding statement to address any areas that were inadequately addressed in the FEIS, and consider taking action based on the finding statement, on the draft resolution.
On this draft resolution. Right.
As well as to look into the Cornell case, to read it. Get some-
And the New Paltz
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
The more information I can get, I'll be happy to make it available to the board and let you know what
Yeah.
I make of it.
Okay, so does anybody make a motion to do those three things?
I'll make that motion. So
Thank
moved.
you, Augusta.
Second.
And thank you, Tom. All in favor?
All right.
Aye, and there is a quorum of us, all five, so the motion is carried, and we will look at these things and come up with a
Conclusion.
conclusion. Thank you. Is there anything else with regard to?
Do we get all this in electronic form? These things?
I did not send it to you electronically, but I could.
Okay, then I agree.
So it's,
Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn.
Okay,
All right.
okay, now, back to,
Should we, where is
Where's
Lyle
Lyle?
hiding?
More ways you could get.
Uh-huh, well, I'll go fetch Lyle.
Well, that'd be interesting.
We need at least one chair that doesn't have arms. Lyle was gone into the office.
What's next?
Going by.
Not back.
Yeah, she went to look.
Okay, we're back on application reviews, and the next up is ShopRite. Okay, I guess you guys have made some changes in your applications. You want to just give us a quick summary?
Well, I'm Steve Gavin from the Drake Loeb Law Firm, here for the applicant New Paltz Property Development. This is Robert Palmer from the applicant with me.
Good evening.
I'm sure you know Anthony Capola from Capola Associates, and we have Margaret McManus from Chazen, our engineers. This is, of course, the ShopRite Plaza on Main, and we're never heard of it?
Just kidding.
Well, you're impartial then, I like that. Anyway, what we're proposing is an uplift, facelift to the facade, if you will, and some minor related improvements. I'm sure you're all familiar with the property. Most of it pertains to the addition on the side. I think maybe the best way to approach this would be to have Anthony walk you through the elevations and the site plan itself.
So, I was here in January with Margaret, and the facade drawings have been changed since then. But basically, we're looking at the facade that faces to the north, and then the ShopRite facade also. The facade that faces to the east, we do not have that tenant yet, so we're not really addressing changes to that facade. We talked about that last time. So what we had talked about, basically, this is not an expansion of the existing facade. We are not making it higher. We are basically just applying an ephes finish to this. All of the doors are remaining the same, and that's essentially what we're doing. So we've designated all of our colors over here. I have samples of our colors if anybody wants to look at that. And we are basically covering the brick with an exterior finishing system. A couple of the comments from last time was to do something more durable down along underneath the aluminum storefront glass, and we've done that, noted that there. We have also added a red band. That was another comment, maybe to make something that's a little bit more of a highlight. So we've added the red color band going across. That's noted on the drawing. And basically added a little bit more detail to the columns. So the crown molding at the top is new. It's at the same height as the top of the parapet that is there now. All of the storefront doors are remaining, and basically what we're looking to do and where we'd want to go with this is the owner has an obligation to continue with the construction for Just a Buck, which is one of the interior stores that is currently being renovated. That's an existing use that is not changing. Retail use, and we had talked about that in January too, and we've also been working with your building inspector and have successfully submitted drawings for building permit by the landlord, and then a building permit for the tenants. That's in the process right now. So it's very simple and straightforward in terms of the facade and the architecture, and that, like I said, that end unit we would be not addressing at this point until the owners want to move ahead. I think once they get a signed commitment.
Are you, for the end unit, are you addressed?
Right, so are you addressing like, just like basic facade stuff?
I
So it's
think
a
we are just
continuation of what you're
painting
doing?
it.
The existing CMU wall, we just painted.
Yes.
So that's the wall that faces east, but
Correct.
like if you're looking at it from the front, that's gonna be uniform all the way across.
Correct.
Yeah, the corner wraps right around that.
Because I think the only thing different is when you,
You want
I
to
guess,
go to the
had-
site plan and see the jogs?
Well, you had a potential tenant and you were.
We had a
putting
potential
in an
tenant here,
entrance
and they were
there.
asking about putting an entrance here,
That's
which
right.
is
So
not
that's the
happening.
only thing different that
Right,
you
that's
removed
not-
from our conversation.
Right, that's
the
not
last time.
happening.
Right.
Okay.
And I don't even think they're looking to do that at all at
No.
this point, even if they go ahead. So that seems to be off the table, that entrance.
So any change in facade or access to this side of the building is completely off the table.
Got it.
The cover letter that we sent March 21st has a nice punch list of all the various items that are included in the facade update and the minor improvements that are related to it.
This application proposal is strictly to enhance or upgrade the facade of the existing building. And obviously, we're painting the two side walls, one that faces the adjacent property, the other that faces south corners, and obviously the back of the building, which is all block right now and it's painted. That'll be cleaned up and then repainted in color scheme to match the color in the front. And then the upgrade to the front facade is what it is. It's face value, and it's an upgrade to the old metal battleship gray metal siding that's there. So that is all we're proposing on this application, other than we are going to bring the site into conformance with this currently approved site plan showing these cart corrals that the commission had approved some time ago. And I believe it was to enhance stop ShopRite from parking all their carts in the fire lanes and on the sidewalk.
Shown on the site plan, we're just
Right.
installing.
This is the previously approved site plan from the commission. ShopRite, I believe, came in a few years ago and did this.
This is from 1976 or more recent?
No, it is from '06.
So this now includes spots to put shopping carts.
These are the original spots that were approved in '06 by the commission, these three spaces here.
And when will they construct those?
There's a detail in the package that I think you received. As long as you guys are okay with that shopping cart corral, we'll order them and install them immediately.
What about the trailers parked in the front there?
Here,
Yeah.
we're sending a letter to ShopRite that they can't do any parking of trailers here or anywhere else on the property for purposes of storage. That's something in their lease, and the ownership is sending a legal notice to them on that.
Mind adding a note to the plan?
I'm sorry?
Would you mind adding a note to that effect on the plan?
I wouldn't,
You wouldn't mind?
no. What kind of note do you want? How do you want it said?
That says no use of, storage of trailers is not permitted on the
Okay.
site. However, your lease permit.
Okay.
Now, I believe in January, we also discussed the east entranceway.
Yes, we just said that's off the table now.
The entrance into the building?
You're still potentially.
No, the entrance into the parking lot itself.
Off
Oh, I'm
of
sorry.
South Putt Corners?
South Putt.
Oh, right. That's right. You had a question about emergency vehicles, so like in terms of the size, right?
Well, it's not, it's the entranceway is just, with the increased traffic of new stores in there, it's an issue now, and it really should be corrected.
And width, or what are we talking?
Design, I don't believe there's a curb cut, a conforming curb cut there. I think it's just been run over by the tractor trailer so much it's gone.
Well, there are repairs planned to be done on site, but nothing to change the site as far as layout and parking spaces at this time.
You know, my only concern is that you're gonna have increased traffic with the stores being rented, and it is a hazard.
And there's also been a discussion, I believe there was some sort of like grant that was received that would allow for a bike lane on South Butt Corners there.
Yeah, we mentioned that last
So,
time.
That was something that, not by us, it
No,
was
not
something
by
that the
you.
town was doing.
Absolutely.
There was
So-
some work that's gonna be done on this stretch of road
Yeah, so
with
whatever-
another applicant that came in
whatever-
for
whatever
a
they're
project
doing.
across the way.
you know, I wanted, you know, if you're making.
I've actually spoken with the county
Mhm.
about that, and it's really beefing up the shoulder. It's maybe used as a bike lane, but it is not going to be designated as bike lane.
That's
Oh,
that's
well,
how they're
that's
touting
really
it,
dangerous.
though.
And I can tell you that, they don't see that it's going out in the foreseeable future for the next 2 years. They don't even
Who at
have
the county
construction
said that
documents.
it's just a beefed up
The
shoulder
DPW,
at the DPW?
who are doing the construction documents. And they do not have construction documents at this point, they only have conceptual documents.
Did you look at the Hampton Inn?
The Hampton Inn does show a crosswalk on our property that we don't know how you approved it because no one from our,
There's a letter in the file from the property.
From this property owner?
Yeah.
We presented it to them, they said they never saw it before.
Time to-
Okay. If you've got a copy of a letter, I need to see it, please.
I would have to pull the Hampton in file.
You can just wait it. You got it.
Wait, it has-
Yeah, we mentioned last time pedestrian, I just have on my notes, pedestrian pathways within the parking lot, like a green swath, walkway. Throwing things out there.
Well, with, like, as I said, with this application, as far as for the facade changes, we're not proposing to do any changes to the site. It's,
I think
other
we
than
were.
repairs.
Yeah, I think we had a conversation just about, I don't know if it was different pathways or kind of,
Of upgrading the
Yeah.
site plan to meet the code. That's what we required of,
when we made that presentation, we assumed that we were going to have a change of use in the building. We are
Gotcha,
not
okay.
now having
So
a
now
change
it's
of
just a
use in the
facade.
building, and we are only coming for you for the facade upgrade.
okay. So all of our dreams.
Well, not
Well,
necessarily,
not yet. It's a big-
because we still have a large section of the building here that's not rented.
Right there, okay. And bike racks? I don't know, I just can't see the plan. We discussed.
I think that in your previous approval, there was something about a bike rack.
It's in front of ShopRite.
It's in front of ShopRite, right?
It's there.
Yeah.
It's on the plan.
It's on the plan.
Is that consistent with the town's current site plan requirements for bike racks?
Yeah, it should be per
There's a-
10 parking
If you look in the
spaces.
site plan regulations,
Mm-hmm.
I can look up that.
there is a requirement for bike racks. There is also a requirement for EV parking.
I'm sorry?
Electrical vehicle parking, which you have the option of presenting evidence to the board and saying it's not really
Okay.
feasible at this point, but it is a requirement. There's these different landscaping things that are shown, the trees, seem to veer off towards the bottom onto the adjoining property. Are those your landscaping or?
On the back of the building here?
Yeah, on the ShopRite, west side.
Here? That's existing grass and trees that are on somebody else's property.
It's just part of the survey goes beyond the property.
Yep.
So this is their tree, their planting requirement. Because we typically require that planting shown have to be replaced, maintained in thriving condition, replaced if not. So I hate for you to be replacing their landscape. So I understand. Maybe you could just put a note that says
If we could come to an agreement with the adjoining property owner, if you wanted to see some plantings here, I would have no issue with putting some plantings there. But I've got to go back to that property owner.
you planning on doing anything soon?
If we come in with a change of use for this space, obviously, we would come to you and see what you're looking for site plan-wise, and this site plan would be more reflective of what some of the options are, or what we can do in this existing.
I think for
Site.
now, we just want the facade drawings approved.
That's right, and we think that if we upgrade the facade, that'll in turn generate
Enhances,
tenants.
right.
And when we have tenants, we'll come back to you and we can discuss all these issues because of the change of use.
well, are all these trees still here? Existing?
As far as I know, yeah.
There's one that is not in the middle of one of the sections.
It's this one.
This one and this one that's not.
Right.
So these trees that are on Valetti are not shown on your approved site plan? That'd be just located, yeah. So it's just located by the surveyor.
They're just located by the surveyor. I can bin them or turn them off.
But they're not under a approved site.
Well, this is, I believe, the approved site.
Wait, are you talking about lighting? Because I know we talked about last time making the lighting darker. And that it was very 1970s lighting.
Underneath the canopy?
I'm not
Or
sure.
in the
I think
parking
so.
lot?
I think, well, I'm not sure, actually, I can't remember.
The
Maybe.
parking lot lighting was supposed to be changed out, and it still has the 1970 whatever fixtures that are there.
In accordance with this approval? Okay. I don't recall seeing that, but
If you wait too much longer, you would have to apply to the historical commission.
They did something with the lights because
I
we
think
had
they
a,
changed the fixtures or
they
the
changed the,
wattage.
they did something with the lights because then, you know, we had, you know, the sun was out there when it got dark, it was awful. Because they left all the lights tipped up and it was blinding everybody driving by. So we made them, so they did do work on them. What they actually did on them, I'm not sure. But they
Check them out.
did tip them all back down.
Do you have,
Easy road.
you have the, whole set of plans on the oil and gas? I don't,
yeah, Stacy, you got. I was involved with this in
Yeah,
2006,
I don't-
so
I don't really remember the lighting aspect of it. I mean, they did the front entrance here. Okay, they had units they needed to put on the roof. I think that's what triggered this. Was the air conditioning units they replaced?
ShopRite.
I think that's what triggered it. And the cart corrals. And being that we're talking about the site, because of the elevation of the walk around the front, around ShopRite itself, the elevation of the sidewalk versus the parking lot, happened to be there last Saturday. And you know you're putting in cart corrals, which is great, because I saw the wind.
Oh, taking them.
Carts
Yeah.
off the sidewalk, right down the parking lot, right into people's cars.
Right off the sidewalk.
Off the sidewalk. So if they're gonna park their carts up there, they might wanna put some kind of curb to keep them.
Probably have to put a rail in.
Well, we mentioned last time more cart corrals.
More?
Or just any, I mean, that's.
Several, yeah.
There are none in right now.
Some.
They, ShopRite never installed them after this was approved.
This is what we have.
Be no signage on the cart corrals.
No, no signage.
06, right?
No, I don't think we.
Which way?
That's your email, or you want to go through the...
No, the original ones were just, it was just a covered cart corral with no signage on it. There was nothing on it.
Range line, which means the down.
usually it's, three-sided and
The door in front of the store is, if I recall, that's a slope down towards the store, so it's getting parked down.
These two.
Store has it actually.
Which one?
The one in front of,
Right.
Yes.
This should be
Yeah, these were the corrals that were submitted in the package. There's no signage on them.
And these are things they've used on other sites? I mean, the
Yes.
roof's not gonna blow off or anything
No.
else? So they just bolt them to the pavement?
They're bolted to pavement so that they can be removed during the wintertime for a snowplow operation, and they can be put back in place. Or else you can't plow.
Smart. All right. Great.
Dave, do you have any other?
I have to look at my file about the lighting.
Um,
Let's see.
I could give Stace a call, whatever you guys find. If there's something in there that we need to take care of, we'll take care of it.
George, you have any comment?
Nothing that I have. I just looked at the notes, on the right side of the sheet, the street plan. Retail sales allowed from the store twice a year. There is a note regarding, the continuation of requirements from the 1976 plan. And there's a note regarding parking.
And as it relates to the building signage, I know your signage regulations have changed. We show on our elevation is where ShopRite will come in for permit once the new elevation is completed for replacement of that existing signage to be more in compliant with your new regulations. Because that's currently an open violation that was issued to ShopRite.
We don't want to conform to that.
Right.
I love those letters. I think they look so cool.
And what we did for the future tenant signage, we gave them what the allowable square footage of their sign would be, and they'll individually come in for a permit for their own signage.
I was asking the building inspector as to whether there was a master sign plan for this property.
There is.
There is. She told me the same thing.
This is-
What I think might be helpful is make a note on the plan for that, so it's compliant with the specific plan dated.
See, I think I gave you, did I send you a copy? I think I might have sent you a copy.
I didn't.
The signage.
Not on the signage.
The signage?
No, you told me there was a plan, a master plan.
Give me
There
the,
is.
But I'm not sure if the master
Approved.
plan was approved prior to your regulation change or after.
It was approved after.
After your
So,
regulation change.
whatever your sign,
Okay.
master sign plan is now, it's up to date and it's current. There
Okay.
haven't been any changes to the code
Okay.
since that time.
if you can just send me that sheet, then
Yeah.
I'll just reference that on the drawing.
So is it your intention to put signs, make your tenants install signs consistent with that plan, or is it something more?
No,
No, we don't
no,
care.
we're gonna comply with what the
Yeah.
town already approved.
There, yeah. Like
We're not asking the town to change anything for signage. If the tenant wants to come in and ask for variance, it's on the tenant. Not that we may
We're
not
just-
necessarily agree to it with them, but
I didn't know if there was changing the master plan.
no.
So I would suggest adding a note that says the master sign plan dated such and such.
Yeah.
Signs are conformed to the master sign.
You want that on the site plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Just put it on as a note.
Yeah, we'll add to the notes that are already there.
Any comments?
Do you wanna see any of the colors?
No.
Okay.
You will follow color board with the.
Yeah.
Go for conditional
Yep.
approval. George, are we ready for a conditional approval?
I think what you would want to do is assess the purpose.
Oh, it hasn't been to the county yet.
So I would suggest maybe that referral,
Okay.
there's no variances.
Hopefully it is.
We have a motion to
Yeah.
refer this to county planning board?
Great.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I just want to make sure I understood the comment that you made about the pathway to the east, where the county DPW is
The
saying
bicycle one?
that there's only conceptual plans to expect a bike lane for at least 2 years. It's only a beefed up shoulder. Because I want to, run that by the county exec and the school district, who had a big to-do about putting in a bike lane on South Butt Corners. And if that's not the case, that's troubling.
We have in the past for properties along South Butt Corners requested a sidewalk easement. And I'm not sure whether that would be, it would depend on what the county's doing, but it may be something that you may wish to
I have copies of their plans, they did send me copies of their conceptual plans, and I can forward them to you. And I mean, I just called and asked
Spoke with
about
it.
the plan and spoke to someone, so I'm sure I have the note of what his name is, but they were like, this is a project, but we don't have construction plans. And I think the county, like everybody else, doesn't have any money. So,
Well, they also had Senator Schumer on Henry W., and they were referring to this exact same project on South Butt Corners the other day, so.
well, if it becomes a hot topic, they can make construction plans relatively quickly, but they do not have them. When I spoke to them,
What you could do when you make the referral is request the county consider whether the plan as proposed is consistent with any county action will be taken on South Butt, so that there can be an opportunity for discussion with the applicant of something that might be in everyone's best interest.
Right, and we would not do that until the applicant is before us pursuing site plan, a change in use for the
Well,
building.
they could, depending on what it is, they could do it at this point.
What's that?
Depending on what the nature is of the county's plan for that, and how it could be accommodated by a change in the applicant's plan, it may be in everyone's interest to do it now. It's done, it's over, there's no issue in the future as to where that stuff will go when they come in with tenants. So it's worth finding out what is proposed, whether there is something that will facilitate the county's plan without unduly burdening the applicant, and the plan can be conformed with that.
But this applicant is not pursuing anything regarding, anything besides the facade of their building.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Okay, but there will be no, if there is something in the works, it's not going to hold up their project?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's basically inviting the applicant and the county to work together if there's some opportunity which can be accomplished.
Right, once they
Never make an
hopefully get a
demand.
tenant for that corner of the building, that would require a change in use, so.
There would
We have to wait for
certainly
that.
be a more thorough review at that time, but the point I'm suggesting is, if there is something the county's planning on doing at some point in the future, and it may change the alignment of the road, the right-of-way, the property line along this boundary, it's not a bad thing for the applicant and the county to understand that right now, and be guided by their best interest. So it's worthwhile having that conversation, essentially.
I understand.
Okay, I make a motion to refer to county planning board. Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Steve, is there anything else that you?
I think you can see that this is, I mean, depends on, I'm sure, what you hear from county planning, but is it the case that you waive your public hearings, or is it the case that you only require them by a vote later on? I mean, it would be nice if we could come back with some idea that, assuming that there's nothing that we hear too radical from county planning, might be in a position to get this approved next month.
Typically, the board has not held a public hearing on an application like this.
Okay, so there's no need to make a motion to waive it then, just proceed. All right,
No, it's
no,
not
that's all I have.
The packet that's gonna go to county planning, when do I need to get any additional plans to?
Kelly?
When do I need to get any additional plans to send to the council?
As soon as possible, so we can get it on the next agenda.
Okay, I'll put it.
Yeah.
Somebody, so this will give you a copy.
So you referred to county.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
guess it's just a retro.
I love those retro block letters.
Next up is Shealy. Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Did you have a copy of your, did you get Dave's comments? Dave, do you have another copy of your comments? And Sheila? Not too much there. Okay, this is a lot line revision, and Dave had some comments on the map, basically.
Can give you just a brief
Okay,
rundown of
please.
comments.
Thank you.
This property actually falls in 3 different zones. You're lucky. It's in the A3, the B2, and the general floodplain district. So we need, one thing we need is the zone line shown on the map.
Okay.
It's unlisted because of it being next to the town of Lloyd. We need to notify them, and I would say coordinate the review with them, George. I'm looking to you on this. The subdivision plan, the tax map, again, these are minor details. The tax map doesn't show the property going across 299. Easily changed. We're looking for the septic area on the existing, the other lot.
Yeah, do you know what? It doesn't show up with that green shading. It's actually in the wetland buffer. I noticed that when I was sitting in the
Just want to make sure
audience.
it's still on that lot, Dave.
Yeah.
That's our-
Yep. I'll show it. I'll change the color so it'll show up.
Update the application, say the beach, it's in the B2 and the general flood plain also. Sort of site area needs to be noted. It does have a hit from the DEC site on archaeological resources, so we need to add that in the EAF. We don't really need to do anything with it since this is just moving a boundary. There's no land disturbance involved.
Okay.
The short EAF, there's something about the state energy code compliance, and I just say, mark that not applicable in this case.
Okay.
Again, since it's a boundary change. And then that 12B is the archaeological sensitivity, should be marked yes. Just a very few details on the plan that need to be changed, but
There's a newly adopted density control schedule?
well, as of 2010.
Oh, okay. What did I do? The old one. Oh, okay.
All 3 districts should be shown. It's basically adding 125 feet or thereabouts to the backyard of the Sheila residence, so it's a very simple outline.
Most of which is wetland area. They just
Why are they doing this? Just for more buffer?
Yeah, just because they just recently built the house, they realized since they have the opportunity to do it, the owner is willing to do it, they'd like to just have a bigger backyard. Somebody really lives in that house behind there. Nobody lives there now. Cats live there. The woman's will was to take care of cats, so they built a cat house.
What?
Use my money to take care
So
of
they're
the cat.
buying some property from the cat property?
Yeah. Yeah. The woman who, the old woman, Miss Snellgrove, originally owned both parcels. The one in the front here was vacant. After she died, these people bought the front lot from the estate, built the house. Now they would like to get a little additional room for their backyard while they have the chance to.
Well, I mean, we can't do anything without the cats giving their opinion. I mean, we need the cats here.
Public hearing, they can speak their piece.
The cats have a brand new building that they live in right there.
Love New Paltz.
George, what would be the protocol for notifying Lloyd, town of Lloyd?
You would send notice of a public hearing, there's a required public hearing
Okay.
subdivision. You would also, is this require county review? So that would basically just send it to the clerk. So your first step would be to consider whether you want to set the public hearing, and then you would send notice of it to the Lloyd clerk.
I don't think we need a public hearing.
It was this lot that had the driveway in the adjacent area, was that permitted at some point, or just before when?
It was before wetlands. DEC, in order to get their building permit, they had to have a wetland delineation. I don't have a copy of the signed one from the DEC, but I have a shrunk down version of the map that they signed off in 2011.
That's for the new house, the old house?
Well, I just wanted to note that that driveway is shown on the wetland map that the DEC signed off on.
Because we do have a wetland note that says, basically just disclosing to people there's wetlands on the property, and if you're seeking a permit, if you're seeking any improvements in that area, you may need, permit from the DEC, in this case, it may be up to the town. So would you be amenable to adding that?
Yeah, sure. For wetland map.
Now, George, would it be required to have a public hearing, or would you?
Yeah, it's about the revision subdivision. The only thing you can waive is it doesn't require a public hearing to merge lots. Use the numbers, when you fill around the lot lines, it requires a public hearing.
Okay. So we should set a date for public hearing. How long before you would have your plans modified?
I could have them into you sometime next week.
We could do the next meeting, probably.
We would need 10 days, 10-day notice, right?
10-day notice.
10-day notice. So,
And you still have to put the posters out?
Yes.
Okay, so,
Check with Phil. The notice date.
what's that?
You need to do a mailing, we need to publish, and you'll have to put posters.
Okay.
so 10 days, if you could, I mean, if you got it in the next couple of days, then you could do 10 days and have a public hearing in the next planning board.
Yeah, it's
Meeting.
just, it's impossible for me to get it in this
Yeah,
week,
so
so.
we should probably set it for, what's the next 2 week would be?
26th? Well, we have 12th?
12th is the next one,
12th,
26th.
he
Yeah.
wouldn't make, so set it for the 26th?
28th?
28th?
Our planning board schedule is posted in that folder of
Oh. Wait, what's the holiday on the 26th? Oh, probably like Memorial Day.
So that would be,
Wednesday the 28th.
29th, it looks like.
Oh, not Thursday.
Is that what that's saying, 29th?
Yeah. Thursday we moved to? Okay.
That's 2013.
To go for the next
Stuck in the
year.
past. If it's the Wednesday, it's the 28th.
No, we're not.
Wednesday the 28th.
Yeah.
So we'll go to 28th.
Yeah.
That's a Wednesday?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we do it for that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so, we need a motion to set a public hearing for the 28th of May. The Shealy lot line revision.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Okay, any more discussion?
So I put that on this tracking sheet, public hearing, right?
Yeah.
And then assuming the modifications reflecting Dave's memo. That's all we're doing here, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're set for that. And you know how to do a public hearing thing, you get the notifications and the signs and all that stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll talk to Kelly tomorrow or the next day. I'm in my office here.
Dave, do all towns get this many chances at revisions here?
Yeah, surprisingly. No, sometimes I just make it just to fill up space, so. anyway.
Sometimes you feel like you gotta fill up that.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
See you Wednesday, Dave?
Yeah, the weather's not looking so good for it, looking for rain. But, yeah, I was gonna check the weather again tomorrow and then talk to Christie.
Saw him today and he's.
Next up is Wildberry Lodge.
I did when I was sitting out the parking lot, so I said you quickly.
Hey, with the big ones.
We need to do all this?
Well, there's two members that weren't at the meeting.
Okay.
So the question is, well, those two members here, because if they're not, you've heard this
I
before.
don't know.
Yeah, good evening, Ross Swinglevitz with Engineering Properties. I'm here this evening with Jennifer Fentile, counsel. Steve Turk, President and CEO of Turk Hospitality Group in Rocking Horse Ranch. And Rocco Timone, CFO of Turk Hospitality Group. As George just mentioned, many of you were at the town board meeting where we made the formal presentation about the entire project. I can go through it briefly with you to give you a little bit of information, or we can let Steve go and talk longer. Tell me what you want to hear, and we'll go from there.
Were either of you guys there?
I was there.
You were there?
I
You
wasn't,
weren't
but I've
there.
been reading.
She read the
I-
newspaper.
yeah. I read the articles.
You read the article?
Read the application too.
I'll give you a brief
Just give us a brief, because
overview
we
of the
were
project.
sort of been in
Um,
touch.
Site location for the project, as everybody probably knows, the Thruway exit, exit toll booth 299 on the north side, South Ohioville Road, on the east side. I'm gonna turn it like this, probably makes it easier for everybody to recognize. So, Thruway exit ramp 299, South Ohio Road. This is a site that was the subject of many former applications that have been in front of this board over the last 20 years or so. The site's approximately 56 acres in size. We are proposing on the site a 250 to 275 room hotel. It's really a recreation resort. I think that's what we're classifying it as. And with the recreation resort, obviously there'll be a lot of recreation. There's proposed indoor water park, climbing wall, bowling alley. Exterior there'll be a pool, tennis courts, zip lines, as well as a spa facility in the building. In addition to that, there is also a conference center for about 500 seats that are proposed as part of the application. Access to the site, there are 3 access points to the site. One is at the existing Paradise Lane entrance. We're proposing an access that's probably going to be a right-in, right-out, depending on what the DOT will allow us to do, into a traffic circle. The traffic circle will have an access to Paradise and access to the site, and then another leg that will go back off to South Ohioville Road, so anybody entering the site will go through the traffic circle, make a decision which way they want to go. Exiting, you'll go out to South Ohioville Road to go either north or south, most likely north to the intersection. Quick question?
Is there ever an option to connect from the thruway exit onto Paradise?
That was discussed at length in the Crossroads application. The Thruway Authority does not allow any accesses off of there. Unlike Woodbury County, which actually has one, but that is totally against their policy for accesses. And it was discussed during that previous application. They will not permit it. Any of this is being the Thruway controlled access. Because we had looked at an access point here into the Crossroads project.
But DOT did make a suggestion coming right off the,
Pardon?
the suggestion from DOT to make an immediate right, widening of.
Oh,
that's
yes,
what-
yeah. I mean, so what'll happen is, obviously, traffic entering the site will come through the toll booth. We would probably end up widening 209 here so that there'll be a dedicated lane here. That'll be an accel lane and a decel lane. So basically, there'll be a separate lane that allow you to stay in to come into the site without having to mix into traffic. With all exiting traffic going to the intersection of South Ohio Road 299. The second service entrance on South Ohio Road, primarily to access the tennis courts and the service area of the facility. Water for the project is to be provided by 4 wells. They have been pump tested extensively. They're at the rear of the site. There will be water treatment and a water tank provided to provide water service to the project. There is some discussion with the town regarding their desire to make a more regional water district in this area. It'll be something we'll discuss as we move forward. Sewer for the site, there's a couple options. We're showing an on-site sewer treatment plant. We did meet with the DEC last week. Discharge would have to be down 299 towards the Swartco for that plant. The other option is potential upgrade to the Ohioville Road plant, amongst a few other options that we discussed, but we'll go through those options again in the environmental review process. One of the issues here that we have to deal with, and that Jennifer has been dealing with already, is zoning for the site. Hotels, recreation are all permitted, but this combination of uses is kind of unique to the zoning. So Jennifer has been working on a draft zoning amendment that would address this use on this property. The property is currently zoned industrial and business, so business in the front, industrial in the back, just to give you an idea of the underlying zoning. We submitted an application and a full EAF, the new EAF, which is very voluminous, along with the concept plan. We've also discussed at a work session that applicant is committed to preparing an environmental impact statement. Even though there's been a significant amount of environmental work done, we're committed to doing a new EIS to address this project specifically its impacts on the environment. So that'll something we've committed to do. Procedurally, we're glad to answer any questions you may have. Jennifer, myself, Steve, Rocco. We'd like, if the board feels it's appropriate, the board to determine itself as intent to be lead agency and circulate to any involved and interested agencies. With that, Jennifer, anything else?
Well, I think that's really the action that we'd like the board to take tonight. Ross has been working on developing a draft scope. We think that it's appropriate to do a full EIS, even though the initial analysis has shown that this project is in many of the important ways less impactful than Crossroads, but nonetheless, this is a site that's very important to the community. Certainly the EIS process has more of the full public hearing process and an opportunity for the community to review the process as it goes along. So we think that that's a better approach. And so Ross has been working on a draft scope. I'm sure that he'd welcome working with Dave Clauser's office on progressing that document. And as Ross briefly mentioned, the town board has authorized its two counsel, George as the planning board attorney and Joe Moriello as the town attorney, to develop zoning that would address this use. And so I have been speaking with them. I think that generally what we have been working on is something that's an overlay district where the town board would have total discretion of whether or not to designate a site for a recreation resort use, and that the essence of the approval would be tied to a conceptual development plan that would be very much like the plan that you're looking at now, so that at the time that the town board took action to designate any site as a recreation resort, it would know what it's getting. It wouldn't just be writing a blank check saying, now go and develop a recreation resort plan, but would have specifics that would be part of the ongoing coordinated review of the zoning and the planning. So certainly the zoning law itself would be one of the very important approvals of the process, but certainly that zoning will also provide that the planning board plays a key role, both in review of the proposed zoning and in reviewing of the site plan.
The feedback that I've heard from folks in the community in terms of coming up with a concept regarding a recreation zone is it seems like the community would be very much in favor of the ability, and this is interesting stuff because I guess it, you know, it speaks to the business model of this project, and that the community would be very pleased if they had the option to, you know, pay for day passes periodically, and something more than just, you know, 2 weeks a year, like, oh, it's community week, you can come. But, and I believe that Steve has kind of mentioned this maybe in his previous presentation, but I think that would go a long way in terms of getting folks in the community on board with however this is going to be zoned.
Yeah, I think that has been one of the issues that has been discussed to date and would be one of the issues that's reviewed during the EIS process. Certainly, this is a recreation resort, and if the resort is completely full, it's sort of like Mohonk, right? You can have day passes at Mohonk, but if Mohonk it's you know, whatever fall weekend or whatever thing, you know, then there's no room. So I think that the applicant is certainly willing to explore the extent to which this can be done, and the extent to which it's allowed in the zoning. I think one of the issues that's going to be discussed is traffic, right? What are the impacts on that? And what are the impact on if it's key vacation weekend, then probably or week at the resort, right? And the resort is booked solid, then there's not going to be any availability to have day passes. But if there is availability, it remains to be discussed with the town whether this is something the town would want. I know that we've had some informal discussions with Dennis Doyle at the county, and he was concerned about what is this? Is this really a resort, or is this sort of a day park? And this is intended to be a resort. Now, that doesn't mean that accommodation to the extent possible can't be made to work with the community. And certainly, I think another aspect of this is you have the current zoning allows indoor recreation. Interesting, it allows indoor recreation, not outdoor recreation. And indoor recreation requires as one of its elements that there be some access to the public for use. So I think the town's on record because of that policy of wanting to encourage access by the public to these facilities. So I think you point out an issue that's going to be an important one during the review. And I think that would be one that the town board is going to be exploring in the zoning too, to see how those two issues mesh. But I think there are certainly many ways they can mesh.
Right, it seems like a challenging concept, because it will be primarily a destination
Right.
resort, but with some day use optionality, so how do you bake that in, so?
Right, well, I mean, this isn't the first recreation resort ever founded in the United States. I mean, Great Wolf, I understand, has day passes on, situations where it's available, and we know in our own community that day passes are available at Mohawk. And I think that we could probably predict at this point that it would probably be a model similar to Mohawk, that there's going to be peak seasons of the year when that isn't possible.
Well,
But
my
beyond
take-
that, I think there would be possibility, again, if it ends up being allowed in the zoning. This is intended to be really a resort, and of course, every resort would love to be full 52 weeks a year.
Yeah, I think it seems like it would have to feel a little bit different than Mohonk, because Mohonk has, sure, you can, be a preserve member, or you could pay for a day pass to use preserve lands that is the sister organization that goes alongside with the Mohonk Mountain House.
Mhm.
But there's never an option except for those couple of community weeks per year when you can use the Mountain House facilities. So I don't know that that's really
I think you can pay for parking
Yeah.
and go in, but you can't use the pool or the
Right, there's
tennis
certain
courts. There's like certain
restrictions.
things. I love that pool.
Is that right? I mean, I didn't think that you were really ever supposed to go into the hotel.
No, I think you can.
You
Pay for
can.
parking. Yeah.
Because
It's like
I've gone there
$25.
for family lunches and things like that. People can go.
Well,
there
that's
for
if you're
that.
paying for a lunch.
Well,
No,
sure.
you can park in. I just
I
did a
mean,
couple weeks ago.
oh, you mean just to go in and not have lunch?
I'm saying if you pay to
Yeah.
use the grounds to hike, are you
Mhm.
permitted to go into the Mountain House?
Well, that I don't, see, there may be different classifications
That's the
of
thing, all
day
I'm saying is
passes,
it
so-
seems like it's not necessarily,
Could, yes, it's not exactly,
it's
an
a
exact
different
analogy,
model, it's
yeah,
not a perfect fit.
yeah.
I mean, I think one thing
Because
speaking to
Mohawk,
that model, yeah, well, is that it is so exclusionary to the town members. Like, for instance, for my birthday, stayed at Mohawk, and they have this beautiful pool that's so wonderful, and you can't ever go to that pool unless you stay there, which for someone who lives in New Paltz, and this is obviously a very personal issue, that, it'd be really great if it was something where, people who want to play tennis in the community wouldn't have to stay 1 mile from their house in order to play tennis. Just thinking of things like that in terms of making it inclusive to the town.
well, I think also when they highlight their community weeks at Mohawk, they say, come on up, you can pay to use the ice skating, and that only exists a couple times a year. It's not like you can ever do that, so you can't use the pool, you can't use the ice skating. There's several
Yeah.
amenities that are not available.
I see.
The only thing that's available are the hiking trails. So
And
it's a
especially
little
with
bit
this being so
different.
close to town, at least Mohawk is pretty literally removed, but it seems like it would be great if it was more available.
Well, I think those options will definitely be
Yeah, these are
explored.
things to discuss,
Again,
yeah.
it's the proposal is to be a resort, but there's
Yeah.
certainly nothing instantly that makes that impossible to work with the community for
I think we're just throwing stuff out
open days, open times. Certainly, the solution is gonna have to be a practical one for everyone.
Absolutely.
And we're gonna have to assess the impacts of that in terms of traffic
No, and it
and
has to
water
work
and
with your
everything else. Yeah.
business model
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I think that maybe we're jumping the gun on some of this stuff. And
Yeah.
one important item of business we need is a resolution to declare planning board lead agency. And that's the main thing we have to do tonight.
Can I ask a general, since we were just talking about the general overall plans, huge general question? Or would that be annoying? Okay. New Paltz has such a reputation as a nature-loving town full of environmentalist hippies, that I just wonder if you could speak to a little bit like the environmental properties of the project, if it's gonna be like a LEED certified building, or just kind of, if it's gonna be really innovative in terms of
This was
environmentalism.
Tim asked this question at the town board
Okay,
meeting.
sorry.
No.
And, I mean, to me,
That's great.
to
Yeah.
privately, but, yeah, I mean, there will be a section in the EIS where we'll explore sustainability, energy use, and we'll discuss what things we incorporate in the project that we can incorporate in, that are sustainable, you know, how we're saving energy here, what we're doing, along those lines. So it'll be something,
And the,
we know that's very important to New Paltz, and we've
Right.
actually gonna dedicate a section of the secret document to that.
Awesome. All right, thanks. So, yeah, I'll make a motion that we become lead agency for purposes of seeker review of the above project.
Second? Second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The other action you could take is authorize the engineer to work with the applicant's engineer on preparation of a draft scoping outline on the assumption that is, you're likely to be a lead agency. I don't know anybody else who wants it.
yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Just a clarification on the thruway. Was that approached the thruway recently, or was this done in the for the previous?
6 years
project?
ago, or whatever it was, yeah.
Are you going to maybe revisit it in the course of it?
We certainly could ask that question again. I think I know what the answer's gonna be, but if the board would like us to, we could.
Because that would probably solve some of the traffic issues. If you,
Yeah, the traffic on this project is probably 30% of what the previous proposal was. So significant, 70% less.
Sure, but
Or
you know, we all
30%,
know
so-
how sensitive folks are about traffic
Absolutely.
generally,
Absolutely.
particularly on
Yep.
holiday and any
And the
busy
impacts will
weekend.
be at.
Oh,
on
yeah,
weekends.
and getting off the thruway.
Yes,
I
yeah.
think it's the busiest toll booth
Yeah.
on the thruway.
We can certainly ask that question again.
Doesn't hurt to ask again.
The thruway used to have a formula to figure out what the cost would be to take an off-ramp, so I was a little surprised to hear that they said absolutely not on Crossroads.
Absolutely not,
so
yeah.
evidently-
Woodbury Commons got it, it'll never happen again. I think it's kind of
We had talked to them on a previous proposal, and they said it was very possible. And I talked to someone at the Thruway Authority, and they said they actually had a formula that tell a developer they would assess it and tell a developer how much it was going to cost. That was the project, Old Crossroads.
Yeah, that's why I
Well,
know
it's
it was
worth
brought up
asking
again.
the question again and having
Absolutely.
current information, because I'm sure a lot of people
Sign
would
here?
be concerned about
I
that.
think
And we
if
should
you're
at
able
least
to
have
secure
signed,
that,
yeah.
you have a great deal of public
I wonder if it's
support.
something that we could recommend too, before,
Okay,
you know,
so
just the
this is
applicant
supposed to be
whether-
us
Well,
here?
that would be
Yeah.
an interesting thing too, Ross, if when you presented it to the Thruway, it could be presented as something that the town has asked us to explore.
George,
That
yeah,
would
they sign here?
certainly
No.
beef it up
That's-
beyond
that's
just
my
something that
comment?
an
Okay, you
applicant.
said no.
Applicant has
So you
desire,
have to
yeah.
sign it.
We can make a motion.
Yeah.
Motion to have the throughway expand its entrance.
Or make a motion to encourage the applicant to look into it.
Yeah, we'll go
And
right
then,
ahead
and then
and
you
do
can
that.
reference that in your note.
Right, that's great. And,
All in favor?
Aye.
and might it be possible to be put on the board's agenda for your second meeting in May, May 28th, to maybe discuss the draft scope? Because the time for circulation won't be over by May 28th, because it's the 28th today. But it would be over shortly thereafter, so I think we'd clearly want to schedule a public scoping session. And when we do that, we would want to be circulating the draft scope that has been reviewed by the board. So does that make sense to put it on for the 20th? Do you think that would allow the two engineers enough time?
I'm trying to think of the differences in the scope between this and Crossroads. There are some, but
Yeah, we'll use that
there's
as
a
a
lot
basis, and I've already started.
Okay.
So May 20th.
So does that make sense to be on the
Do we
May
have space
28th
on the
meeting?
calendar for that? To put them on for
May 20th.
May 28th?
The other thing I think you could do at that meeting is offset, indicating the areas of concern.
Mhm.
You haven't, won't be able to do that to your lead agency formally, but
Yeah, we
Yeah.
could discuss that on the 28th. That's a good idea.
just so we know what the issues are. Probably if you use the rest, that'd be perfect. Do you have that? Offset from,
Prospect one?
no, from Crossroads.
Yeah.
You can send it to Dave and me.
Sure.
I think that's all we need to do tonight.
All right, yes, thank you very much. And we're looking at some models of public use in some of these resorts. That's what we're interested in.
Yeah, I think that's probably, you could look at a variety of other destinations
An initial somewhere?
Settle.
No, that's it. Just so you have a record of what we did.
Thank you.
These chairs are very low.
They were free.
Thank you.
Okay, a couple more things we need to be done. I just gotta ask George if we can do these application extensions together. We have to do them individually.
Then I'll get what you want, Buffalo. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. George, on these application extensions requests, do we need to vote on them individually, or can we
I
lump them
don't
together?
think so, except for Katie.
Pardon?
Katie
Okay,
seems to have,
separate.
well, yeah, a little bit of progress. but not
Thank you,
much.
everybody. Good night. Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, we have requests for application extensions from Vaccaro Birches, Hampton Inn, New Paltz Views, Rappa Pony Hill, and Pyramid Services. I believe they've all asked for a 60-day extension. Is that correct, Kelly? Is that a 60-day extension or 90? 90-day extension. And do I have a motion to extend these? These are all probably for economic
Well, what about him?
conditions. Hampton Inn is on here also.
Why are you holding it?
They're working on building plans, but they haven't finished them yet.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Get a building permit all the time.
they need a little bit more time.
That K&E note that we got today, weren't they gonna have a representative here?
Maybe, but he didn't, he said he didn't think he was gonna get anybody.
I think
That's what the
they-
note, like, I think the note said that he would not be available, but he was gonna get a representative.
the representative in
He
the
just
house.
walked out the door.
Does anybody want to represent that king?
Well, let's do the others separately then.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 90-day extension for Birches, Hampton Inn, New Paltz Views, Rappa, and Pyramid Services. So 90 days would be, anybody have a calendar? Can you look at those? I'm sorry.
Don't have one that goes that far.
Yeah, doesn't go that far?
The second meeting in July.
Second meeting in July?
Sure about that, I think. I would, it should be on for that meeting.
Sounds good.
So that would be July 21st. Is there a second?
So moved. Yeah, second.
Okay, any more discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, K&E had a 60-day extension. We hadn't, in that time, we hadn't received any submittals or correspondence or anything from them until today, and we received, what did we receive today? A revised site plan. Did everybody get this or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so, so we're making some progress, but it's not what we had hoped for, I think. You saw it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very slow and.
Has he made any progress in correcting the violation?
He's,
Mostly there's a guy with a hammer out there. Somebody's
So-
supposed to be working on taking it down.
Okay,
Ten
but
days.
it hasn't been verified that he's done anything, right?
Not in whatever I saw earlier today.
no.
The board could consider 30 days to
Sure.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
keep us focused on things.
I would make that motion.
Doesn't have parking or drainage
Yeah,
or, doesn't have anything.
The
He's
plan
not doing
should-
any- he's basically not doing anything except taking down the shed and painting the building.
He hasn't even taken down the shed yet.
So let's say we'll give him an extension for 30 days and then have to have him come into a meeting to discuss.
Can we also put in the motion that the violation has to be verified that it's been corrected by the building inspector?
We could do
Well, it
that.
hasn't been.
Yeah, but
But by the
within the
next-
30-day
Within
period.
the 30-day period.
The shed's not that big.
Um, Okay, so make a motion to extend them for 30 days and require in-person appearance with proof of
Correcting them.
correcting, whether it's a photo or whatever, that he's corrected the violations.
That's the May 28th meeting,
That would be May 28th. meeting.
Wednesday.
Well, that's not 30 days here. No, it's 30 days.
30 days, yeah.
Second.
Okay, any more discussion?
No.
All in favor? Aye.
So you can write him a letter.
I think Mike was already writing one.
For George. Attorney Wayne.
Okay, is there any more, anybody have anything else to discuss? Let's call it a wrap then. Meeting's adjourned.
17-hour shots. Yeah, thanks so much for